Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. On July 4th, National Public Radio made a series of tweets trashing the Declaration of Independence and attacking the fathers of our country. NPR said that they were flawed and hypocritical. Their argument was, it says that all men are created equal, but women, enslaved people, indigenous people, and many others were not held as equal at the time. This statement is correct, but I pointed out the hypocrisy in what NPR was saying. NPR censors and denies a voice to anyone who doesn't go along with their left-wing agenda. They constantly imply that Trump supporters are racist, insurrectionists, and terrorists. NPR has blanket censorship against climate skeptics. The reality is that NPR has no interest in treating people as equals. Most of the time they pretend that the red areas of the country don't even exist. So let's see how people responded to my tweet. Robert Farkas said, "Land doesn't vote, people do." Chuck Wolber said, "Land does not vote." Chris B. said, "Laughing my ass off, these maps mean nothing. People aren't land." Michael said, "Losers count counties, winners count electoral votes. You are fundamentally a loser." David McRae said, "Land doesn't vote. Republicans barely make up 30% of the vote." And T. Glenn, who appears to be a musician from New Mexico, sent me the conservative victim card. Ebony K. also appears to be a musician, and she wrote, "Urban density matters, twit." There are many problems with their arguments, but I just want to focus on one of them right now. These people are defending NPR's discrimination against conservatives based on the concept that conservatives are a minority. Their argument is that discrimination against minorities is okay. The left is using exactly the same argument as every other hate group in history. They picture themselves as being the defenders of minorities while openly bragging about discriminating against them. I grew up around leftists, and for them a minority means somebody with darker skin who they believe needs the white people's help. Every 4 years, white liberals pretend that they care about black lives. This graph shows Google Trends for Black Lives Matter in the United States. There was a big spike right before the 2016 election, then it flatlined, and another big spike right before the 2020 election. And in between these two spikes, many thousands of black people got shot in Chicago. 4,380 shot in 2016, 3,561 shot in 2017. 2,962 shot in 2018, 2,754 shot in 2019, 4,174 shot in 2020. White liberals didn't care about any of these people. They won't even acknowledge the fact that Democratic-run cities have a huge problem. This graph shows very clearly that what white liberals care about is obtaining political power. They wouldn't have invited Trayvon Martin or George Floyd into their home. In fact, they probably would have called up the police had George Floyd showed up at their front door. But they were happy to pretend that they cared about him after he was dead. More than 50 years ago, Malcolm X explained what was really going on with white liberals.
There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox. And a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to. But the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling. You take him for a friend.
There are many whites who act friendly toward Negroes. A fox acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate.
I'd like to point out, though, that...
I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro.
On the other hand, I think one could point to a large number of whites who have struggled for civil rights, for equality, and have got little or nothing out of it, other than quite a few bruises.
Give me an example.
Well, the large number of white students who have gone into the South, for example, working for SNCC, and other organizations.
Not working for SNCC or other organizations, but working for the white political machines who benefit by the voting efforts of Negroes.
Okay. Today, you could point to a large number of Negro leaders who have consistently betrayed Negroes in a whole host of areas.
They aren't really Negro leaders. These are puppets that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. These are parrots that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. You can't name me a Negro leader who has been betrayed Negroes, who has not been endorsed, sanctioned, subsidized, and supported by the white liberals.
All that the Democratic leadership cares about is politics and power. Democratic politicians have been keeping the black community in their inner cities living in hell. And Democrats have been doing this because they want the black community to feel like they're dependent on the Democratic Party. Because as soon as people become successful, they tend to vote for Republicans. This is exactly what Malcolm X was talking about, and is why he called white liberals the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. They claim that they love minorities while bragging about the fact that they discriminate against them. In fact, they don't even seem to understand what the word minority means. Toto understands that the only way back to sanity is to get these lunatics out of power. You can visit him, Kyrie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.